Hello everybody and welcome to this special impromptu broadcast, and we're going to be talking about the burning issue, this breaking scandal. Is this all Excel's fault? We've heard this afternoon that 16,000 rows of data, items of data have been lost by the UK government in a shocking show of incompetence. Nobody would have thought that this government would do that. Anyway, we're not going to get too political, but is it right? Everybody out there blaming Excel. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Is it a case of, well, it's not the tool, it's the operator. It's always the person using Excel or whatever platform you're using. Is it their responsibility? Or perhaps has Excel got out of control? Everybody having access to this powerful piece of software. It's like we're all driving around in Formula One cars. It's dangerous. Things crash, sometimes quite literally. So what is your view on this one? And today I want to get a kind of live news stroke talk show feel today. Live news talk show feel. So if you want to drop in, I've just put the link in the chat. I would love to have you in the chat. And can you also let me know, can you see me and can you hear me as well? So who's in the chat with us today? Jasmine is with us. Welcome, Jasmine. Good to have you with us. And Jasmine is saying, what we're going to do with this stream? Are we still on for later? Yes, members, we're still going to do our Members Monday stream later. Welcome, Michael. Michael's one of our new members. So a big welcome to you. Craig says you can see and hear me. Thank you very much. Trupol Silif. Okay, I haven't seen you before, but a big welcome. Looking forward to hearing your opinions, and you're absolutely right. It looks like they were putting data in columns. Like, what is this? Like stacking up data in columns. And Craig, good to see you, Craig. And how are you doing? Good to see you here. And then who else is with us today? Steve Knapp, just tuning in. Steve, how are you doing? And have you finished painting the house? That's the big question here. So I'm just going to put a quick comment here. If you want to join the stream, close the YouTube stream and watch through StreamYard. There we go. That's only if you want to join the stream with me today. And once again, I will put the link in the chat again if you'd like to join me. And Adrian says this could be fun. It was all Excel's fault. Well, I'll set out the main arguments, and let me first say, yes, I have a company that does spreadsheet solutions, training, all kinds of cool stuff about Excel, but I'm a pragmatist. I'm not an evangelist. You know, I totally appreciate Excel has its limitations, but does that mean it's right to blame Excel? I'm going to go ahead and set out the main arguments here and what side are you on. So the main arguments for the prosecution. This is all Excel's fault. Well, it seems like this tool it's just got out of control, hasn't it? It's too readily available. It's available alongside Word, alongside PowerPoint, in any version of Office. And it's a powerful piece of software, but also has some limitations. Some real limitations. And on the channel, I talk about two main limitations, which are firstly, remote working, where multiple people want to update the file at the same time. And secondly, data constraints. And that's what we've felt here. How many rows do we have in an Excel spreadsheet? And I'm still going through the arguments for the prosecution here. How many rows do we have in an Excel spreadsheet? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat, can you, how can we quickly find the number of rows in an Excel spreadsheet? So maybe the government or Serco or whoever was the outsourcing company here, they should have worked this out. How can we quickly work out how many rows are in an Excel spreadsheet? Let me know in the chat. MXXL Google Sheet says, is this video live? It is live. It is live as of 4:30 on the 5th of October, 2020, UK time. But it will be available on replay as well. And we've got our first guest in. So Steve, I can see you. I'll add you to this in a couple of minutes. So Nikki says Control and N to get to the end of the file. Okay, let's give this a go. So on the Windows PC, Control and down cursor, Control and down arrow, and that's what I've done. We can see only 1,048,576 rows. And do you know you've got the row formula in Excel? You can just type in row, and that will tell you, once you've expanded the column a bit, that will tell you the row number as well. So that's a quick way for us to understand the number of rows in Excel. We can see we've got 1 million. Now, what happened was the person doing this copied in a CSV file, copied in from a CSV file. A CSV file is the simplest form of data file, doesn't have any data limits at all. So when you copy from CSV to Excel, Excel just ignores the rows that are beyond Excel's capacity. That seems to be what has happened here. Still going through the arguments for the prosecution here, although admittedly I'm losing my way a little bit. But yeah, the situation just out of control. We've got to rein this in. We've got to rein this in. We can't make this kind of software available to everybody. It gets used for the wrong things, and it should be specialists doing this kind of thing. How many columns in an Excel spreadsheet? Let's go ahead and explore this here. A bit more difficult with columns, of course, because we don't have numbers, we have letters for the columns. How many columns? We can see there, 16,384. Now, this has led people to hypothesize that the data was being stored in columns as opposed to being stored in rows. That's what people are saying. I don't think that's the case, because the data that went missing, it was 16,000 rows of data that was missing. That doesn't suggest to me that it has to be kind of stored in columns necessarily. So let me know your thoughts. Let me just set out the main argument for the defense as well. Well, we've got this powerful piece of software, but as with any piece of software, as with anything in life, if you're operating the software, you've got to show the appropriate degree of care in your work. And Excel, like anything else, if it's abused, not used properly, Excel is, well, if you're not doing the work with the right amount of diligence, you're going to get into trouble. So big welcome to my first guest. Going to throw Steve into the chat here. How are you doing, Steve?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, nice to be online with you on StreamYard here. First I've ever used this, so if I disappear, then sorry, folks. But yeah, I'm in Germany right now, in Berlin, where it has also been reported this problem from the UK, and the Germans, as you might expect, they're kind of shocked a little bit, but to be honest, they're not possibly as shocked as you'd want them to be. Because the news from Britain has been a bit chaotic over the past 4 years from the German perspective. And so they're not entirely surprised. But I did speak to one colleague that works with Excel here in Berlin a little bit. Yeah. And she said that the thing with Excel is, whatever the culture of your team or your department or even your company, you bring Excel in and skill everybody up, it will have an accelerating effect on that culture, for better or for worse. Yeah. So if you've got a really positive culture, it'll make it better. But if your culture, I don't know, if it doesn't really have, as I said in the chat, the right checks and balances, the sort of an appropriate level of safeguard built in, then that will get a lot worse as soon as you kind of inject everyone with the Excel skills. So kind of a double-edged sword, maybe, that it can make it. Obviously it's amazing, but like you said, only in the right hands. Maybe something like that in the kind of broadest sense is what's been going on here.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. And how was this broken in Germany? You said there was a sense of maybe people weren't as shocked as you might think, like hearing this from Germany. And obviously I don't want to, encourage you to be too critical or to get too political or anything, but it just sounds, it sounds like, oh, is this more kind of British incompetence, or is it this is Excel incompetence, or maybe a powerful mix of the two?
I think the overriding sense in Germany is how can it be possible that this mistake can be allowed to happen? Like how is there not many layers of approvals and bureaucratic safeguards which check and recheck and check that this happens? The other thing that Germans have trouble understanding is how centralized the UK government is compared to the government in Germany. And the reason why this wouldn't happen in Germany is because of its federal nature. So and a mistake like this could be made in one local health authority or even in one German land, which is like a version of like a county, but bigger in German, the Länder. But it would never be able to affect the whole country because nothing is administrated on a national level. So I always have to explain to people that you must understand it's a very small group of people in Whitehall, in London, who run the country. It's not sort of particularly sort of delegated out to the regions. It is a little bit, but not much. And so that's what when they understand that, then German people kind of understand how this could have happened. And then they say, well, why isn't it more federal in the UK? And I say, well, that's a big question to do with the history, but we don't have a history of federalism. Maybe we should have more. I think generally in a pandemic, being able to organize stuff in a more contextualized, localized level is quite useful, but there are very good reasons why the UK doesn't have that level of federalization. Well, you could argue it's because it never needed it. It's another discussion.
So no. So it's good. It's interesting to get the outside perspective on this. But what I don't know if you've had a good look through the news, Steve. But obviously, I've been going through the Twitter feed and everything, and there does seem to be a sense of this is Excel's fault. And I'm laying out two theories here. This is Excel's fault. It's happened too many times with Excel. Or the other theory is that, well, these things can happen with any platform. And I do get a little bit disheartened, like how easily Excel seems to take the blame. My personal view is, it's possible that this could happen with any platform, and it's just that the right degree of care and attention wasn't exercised in this case.
Well, it's outrageous to blame it on Excel. The cliche of the bad workman blaming his tools is a cliche, but it also applies here. These tools exist for us to expedite the nature of our work, and they do. And every time they make life easy for us, no one mentions it, but when something goes wrong, suddenly it's the tool's fault. I think as the comment you have on screen now, why they don't have a proprietary system. In Germany, I know it would be an SAP system. SAP, I don't know if it's even known in the UK, but it's a massive German data management company. And every single company, including the university that I work at, uses SAP. And it's hellishly difficult to use. But I must admit, I don't ever recall a scandal involving an SAP error. This is anecdotal evidence. I'm sure it's happened. But I think that there would be a proprietary or some kind of more safeguarded solution here. So I don't think you can blame it. I mean, come on.
So the question is, I think me, even as an Excel consultant, I would say this kind of thing is what shouldn't be done in Excel, because you're going to have data capacity issues, which is what they felt, and also because it's the exact antithesis of what you should be doing in Excel, really, because there's a data capacity issue and there is remote working. And in this particular situation, from what I'm reading anyway, they had a very kind of ad hoc system where medical people from different regions were sending in their, these are our results for today, 500 rows, 1,000 rows here. And then they're literally collating it into a file. Okay. So that to me is, that's not what Excel is for, guys. And, you're on an Excel channel, but part of what we do here is being pragmatic about when to use and when not to use Excel. And I talk to plenty of people every month, certainly a few times a year. People phone up and say, I'd like to work with you. And I say, well, yeah, but you can't do this in Excel. You should use a different system. So if it's generally agreed that we shouldn't be doing this in Excel, why did it end up in Excel? And I would say that's just to do with the immediacy of Excel. You know, it's the first thing we open. You know, when we've got to write some numbers down into Excel. So do you think that's it, Steve? It's just the fact that, you know, obviously not a lot of planning happened, you know, for COVID, even though it should have happened. And there's another point. So it was just a case of we need to muddle through and get this done. But can people be blamed for that? I'm not sure.
We're all guilty of improvising a quick solution, thinking we'll get back to it and refining it, but never doing that. I'm guilty of that. We all do that. Again, it comes down to, are there organizational and systemic procedures which compel you periodically to go back, review what you're doing, and see if there's a better way of doing it. I think in a lot of countries, including the UK, it is considered bureaucratic and red tape to have to do that kind of stuff. But it's when you have this kind of suddenly chaotic situation that you realize, hang on, this is where it pays off. This is where the investment that you make in ensuring your systems are robust actually pays off. It may seem pedantic and unnecessary in the good times, but what happens when this, and was it Warren Buffett who said, you know, when the tide goes out, then you see who's not wearing swimming trunks, right? And you've
got to fix the roof when the sun is shining. You've got to do those.
Yes, cliches abounding today.
Yep.
But I mean,
Tiger cliche solutions today.
They do tend to yeah, that is
a good question here from Nikki. I mean, Nikki is saying, is this something a competent user could have predicted? I think absolutely. A competent Excel user, not an Excel expert, even not, you know, an IT person or, you know, a management consultant type person. If you just tell them the features of what's going on, you can see it's going to be problematic. But it's one of those situations where the responsibility isn't clear, is it? So you got people geographically dispersed, people not part of the same organization, a lack of overall leadership, you know, bringing everybody together and instilling that sense of responsibility. So it's a classic organizational situation. Everyone knows it's stupid, but nobody stops to say that, I suppose.
It's a really salient lesson, though, to many of your viewers and other people that are becoming very, very competent with Excel. You know, an enterprising entrepreneurial individual can get him or herself into a position of considerable power by being the person that says, don't worry, I can do it. I can do it.
He'd be the Excel guy.
Yeah, he's the Excel guy, which is in 99% of life brilliant. But what if you maneuver yourself into a situation where suddenly you're hopelessly out of your depth, and the people that should be supervising you don't really know what you're doing anymore because it's all in Excel, and they're kind of like, you know, tuned out of it. And suddenly you land with whoever designed this spreadsheet is probably thinking now, like, oh, now we have a problem. So, I mean, it's maybe like the kind of the dark side of all the amazing options and possibilities that Excel gives us. Always be aware that with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man now. And in Excel, you have this interface between the real world and the world of data. And if you are the person navigating that interface, wonderful, but you're going to have people that claim to be supervising you, but actually can't do that because you've taken it to a level that they're not really qualified to, but they're just happy that you're doing it. All great as long as it works. Chris, I'm going to have to duck out for a minute because if you can see in my kitchen, I'm baking some bread over there. The oven is about to beep, which would be very unprofessional in this
I'll field a few questions, Steve. Don't worry. I'll field a few questions. You come back. Yeah, I can see you. I can see you, but the viewers can't. Yeah. So great question here from Lucas. So how can a so-called government not have redundant backups? Even if there was data loss, it would be contained with a short time frame. Yeah. And again, Lucas, touching on a problem of having, you know, running things through desktop Excel, you know, you're not going to have those backups, you know, on a different system. And to me, this, you know, I'm not an expert in general IT solutions, but you need an SQL, a web-based database, and then you need to create an interface for the people around the country who are reporting from their regions to kind of input this data into an SQL type database. So it would be a bit like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but one of the organizations I work for, I teach in a university sometimes. And when we upload marks, we can put them in a spreadsheet, but you can then upload the spreadsheet into a little web interface, and you can tell the web interface where the marks are, where the student names are. And the web interface converts that spreadsheet data into something else, I assume an SQL database that sits on the web. And, you know, that's a fairly routine thing to do. I'm sure for an IT professional that exists in the university I work at. I'm sure that kind of system could have been set up to prevent the situation where people are just getting emails and copy pasting into Excel. See what Craig is saying? Yep, they haven't done a lab. Maybe they did indeed grab what's at hand in Excel. Yes. Maybe it's the first time this lab had this lesson and lack of knowledge in-house to know the limitations. Yeah, indeed. I suppose I would say if you've got approaching 1 million rows of data in Excel, you will begin to feel Excel creaking a bit. You know, if you've got 1 million rows in, if you're performing any kind of operation on the data, if you're copy pasting it around, if you're putting a column in, it's going to be very slow with that much data in. So they must have got some warning signs that this file is struggling, and some individuals probably felt that, but never felt the need to kind of take responsibility for it. Any competent data scientist would have seen this coming a mile away, and they could have advised on the best way to work with the data. Yeah, the worst part is they claim it's a world-beating system. Yeah, that phrase world-beating, that seems to be thrown around a lot by the current administration. But yeah, I totally agree. It's almost like nobody took responsibility. You know, the people in the region sending in from the labs, they're probably thinking, we're struggling to process our data, get our testing done. That's not our responsibility. The people collecting the data centrally, who were an outsourced organization, so not government employees, they're probably thinking, this isn't our responsibility yet. And it just goes on, and this is what happens. Craig, I'm guessing the lab was maybe pulled into the COVID testing and hadn't quite this operational situation before. The bureaucracy that Steve referred to would have prevented this, I imagine. Yeah, absolutely. That bureaucracy, not a popular thing in this country at the moment. Yeah, the reason that we have bureaucracies, I suppose, you know, for all their downsides, they do put the required checks and balances in place to avoid this kind of thing. Let's bring Steve back in here. They could have employed data scientists to lead this and software developers to create a user-friendly interface for non-technical people. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a good point, but I just don't think people have ever stopped to take stock and to you know, say, okay, we need to employ some people to look after this, you know, because it's been such a you know, crisis all the way through. It just seems to be people moving from one crisis to the next.
But the world beating phrase that a lot of people are picking up on, it is interesting the way the narrative in the UK, either from the spokespeople from government or from the way it's reported in the press, is really always this competition. Like, we're going to be the best at dealing with COVID. I mean, it's something you hear from the States as well, from Trump, and it is that's the other thing that's slightly bizarre from the kind of continental European perspective, the idea that you can win a pandemic. And it'll be a sort of world beat. I think here, just sort of linguistically, it wouldn't be deemed appropriate to describe a country's response as better than another country's response. What you're implying is, you know, you're going to have more people sick and suffering, which is not. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure. Again, that's the sort of culture in the UK discourse, I suppose, which encourages that, and that's then channels down to pressure on those people on the front line, trying to figure out solutions to very, very difficult problems and what pressure they must be under. But I don't know how you can turn that back and try and, well, everyone's trying to detoxify the discourse and all this kind of stuff. But you see what I mean. This is probably in some way related to that way of talking about all this stuff.
Oh, this is good for Jasmine. Yeah, Jasmine says, yeah, there's a board game out there. It's called Pandemic, and the characters all have to work together to win. And well, there you go. I mean, regardless of your political affiliations and support, you know, I mean, one thing you can agree, you know, that there's just less cooperation, you know, internationally between countries, and obviously we've had Brexit and everything else. So, you know, it would be kind of simplistic to say that it's a direct result of all of that, but I think we have created an environment where, you know, it's more likely that kind of thing might happen.
Yep, agreed.
So what's our conclusion then here? I think I'm saying Excel's not guilty in this case. And what do you think, Steve?
No, Excel's not guilty. It's like you say, it's a complex situation. Excel is it's the bit that people can grasp onto, and we do all quite enjoy having that moment of moral superiority where we say, oh, look at that stupid person, oh gosh, that's just an idiot. And it is kind of nice. I mean, of course, we all know the German word we haven't mentioned yet, but it's Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in the misfortune of others. We all feel that, and I think that making it about Excel makes it easier for lots of people to go, oh God, they're using Excel. Oh yeah, which you kind of understand. It's sort of human nature, but you have to look a bit deeper, and you have to understand the role Excel plays within a more complex system. And I think, as my colleague said, the capacity for Excel to exacerbate existing problems in a company by making everything happen better and quicker, but that means also negative things. Disruptive processes can also happen more quickly. Yeah. And then you bring it all together in a perfect storm of unprecedented situation, massive pressure, poisonous discourse, arguably, and then this is something that happens. No, absolutely. So you can't blame Excel. You can't blame Adrian, in my opinion.
Adrian says he's with us, a user error, not program error. I suppose I'll just kind of play devil's advocate a bit, and I would say, well, yeah, as you know, we can't be directly responsible for how people are using Excel, but you know, Microsoft and the big organizations, they are responsible for the kind of software they make available. And you know, could it be time for how would you say this, a simpler and more but more rugged data recording platform that doesn't do all of the fancy stuff, but just makes sure that you're right on track with whatever data recording, data analysis, you know, data manipulation, moving data around. You know, I think there's an argument for that, because with Excel, there's so much stuff in there. You know, so much stuff in there. You know, you look along all of these, and we've got, you know, in our data bar, we've got like, I don't know what half the stuff, a forecast sheet. No, I don't know what half of the stuff this is. And the fact is, you know, 95% of the time, people are only using 5% or less of this functionality, which suggests to me that there's an argument for a simpler and, as I said, more robust and rugged piece of software that would be designed basically around avoiding user error.
Program it, man.
Yeah. Let's see. So guys, we'll close it down there, but let us know in the comments, what do you think? Is Excel guilty? You know, we're saying Excel probably not guilty on the balance of probabilities. Let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And if you want to keep the party going, guys, we're going straight into Members Monday. Might even see if Steve wants to join us, but I think he's baking bread or something, so maybe not. But we're going straight into straight into Members Monday. Live, our Excel VBA learning community. Click join below this video if you want to get involved. But thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Is Excel guilty or not? Let us know in the comments below. We will continue the discussion. See you soon.